Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Let's get started.
If you should awaken, I will be there when you wake from your lovely
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul and the Body Show. I'm your host, CURT Williams Jr. Now, today is a very special day because we are introducing a chapter, one of my favorite chapters. It's about the Garden of Eden. Now, let's recap. In our last chapter, 17, the Anunnaki arrived here from the planet Nibiru. The Anunnaki are indeed the biblical Elohims. Elohim in the Bible refers to beings that from the heavens they came. Well, like I explained before, anything that came from up above would have seemed to have come from the heavens. Beings at the time had no. Today, there are people that have a very difficult time believing that anything can come from anywhere but here, except God and an angel. Well, that's not really the case, and science will ultimately prove that out. However, they arrived here, and let me make this very, very serious distinction. I call the creator of the universe the creator of the universe because it's self-explanatory. But until you can make a distinction between the creator of the universe and the biblical gods, you will never understand the concept of this at all. The biblical gods created mankind in their own image, which should be enough to explain to you that they look like us and we look like them. The creator of the universe, on the other hand, is more than a being. It's a being plus a concept plus a matrix plus a computerized system. Is basically so many different things coordinating into one thing that is far beyond anything we could ever explain or understand fully. Something that I've always heard and believed is that the created can never conceive their creator. Not fully. We have a connection to the Creator because of our spiritual aspect. Our spiritual aspects gives us the ability to at least ask the question, who am I and why am I here? Because we're able to ask that question, then we can start to create answers for these questions. That's where your Bible comes in. It had to come up with something. Careful with Bibles, simply because they are always going to be governed and mastered by whoever was in power at the time the literature was created. Why would a dynasty like the Roman Empire write a book that was contrary to their power structure? To their power structure, you see. So they had to create it so that it looked like, they had to make it seem like they had at least a connection with a God that you had to fear, just like you had to fear them. Because I saw something very interesting. It was AI, artificial intelligence. What they did was they had the AI analyze many of the biblical writings throughout the world. Now, I particularly like AI. I like artificial intelligence because artificial intelligence cannot be brainwashed. It cannot be manipulated because it is simply going by whatever is input into it in a very honest way. There's no deception to it simply because it's only going by whatever was put into it. And once you know that, once you understand that, oh, you programmed that into that, well, then you understand that it's not the ultimate authority, but at least it will be an accurate assessment of the information. So what they did was they fed the information from these Bibles into AI. And they began to ask AI questions about life. The biggest question, I'm going to get into this further when I'm able to have experts come in and demonstrate the same very thing that I saw. What the biggest question that AI was asked was, according to this literature, what is the fate of mankind? After analyzing biblical texts and everything, AI concluded that total destruction is the fate of mankind. Now, why would an AI come to that conclusion? Simply, like I said, the information was put into it. There is enough destruction and annihilation within biblical literature because of the book of Revelation. If the book of Revelation wasn't in there, the AI would not have, all the input for destruction wouldn't be there. And I guarantee you the book of Revelation was created by mankind, not a God, because a God wouldn't create a book of Revelation simply because you have to understand a ubiquitous being that knows the past, present, and future knew in the beginning when he created you that there would be a revelation and he would destroy you. And I refuse to believe that the creator of the universe is that juvenile, because it would take a completely juvenile person who just wants to play a game for a little while and then turn it off and do something else. This is a very complicated system. And it's complicated enough for us to analyze it, understand it, and still not be able to get all the facts. It's beyond us in the first place. In the second place, I'm going to get into the scientific aspect of the universe from the standpoint of these particular codes that they found within the fabric of the universe. There is a particular, we know that this whole system is run by a super duper computer because there is a code that is running the computer. Not binary, but quantum. Quantum meaning there are codes on top of molecules. Codes on top of molecules that we can see now. So we know that there is a designer. We know that there is a supreme designer in control of all of this matrix. Not only do we know that, but we also know that within these codes, on this quantum browser, pretty much is what it is, are error correcting codes, which basically means no matter what human beings do to this planet, whatever we do to ourselves, we will realign, we will correct ourselves. No matter how bad we do, no matter how bad we muck it up, the codes themselves will redo. It's almost like a reboot. And you have to understand that a ubiquitous being would already know when that reboot would have to occur. So he's like, okay, well, we know you guys are going to mess up in about, in a couple of few million years, and I'm going to press reset. He's not even going to press reset. It just completely reset itself. One of the reasons why I'm here is the only thing that we can do to circumvent this is to raise our level of spirituality. Right now in media, they show too many negative things where you have to look deep to find the beauty that's in the world. But I guarantee you, the beauty is here. It's just not expressed enough. And it is the beauty. It is the good. When we get to the final chapter, I have a chapter on Revelation. But it's inconsistent. It sounds kind of bad at first, but it swings back around to the positive. And it's not taken from me. It was written by Hermes, the thrice born himself. And if you want to have a heads up, get my book, look at chapter 68, I believe, or you can look it up yourself. It is called the Corpus Hermeticum. In the Corpus Hermeticum, there is a revelation type story by Hermes, the thrice born, that was written 3,000 years ago. And it will tell you about how God, the creator of the fabric of the universe, will reorganize and restructure civilization based on the good of humanity. So this is something that we know is going to happen. So you can believe Hermes or you can believe the Bible. Hermes is actually responsible for the Bible. Now, let me get into this very nice chapter I was talking about. Chapter 18, the first Eden.
Chapter 18, the first Eden.
It was the 6th day after the arrival of the majority. The first major mining crew had just arrived from Nibiru. The new settlement would be called Eridu, meaning home in the faraway. Earth Station number 1 in the region they called Eden. They began drudging waters off the nearby gulf in search of the element, using newly designed ocean platforms after bringing them through millions of miles through space. They needed to send samples of the product back to Nibiru on fast-moving vessels waiting in space as soon as possible for analysis. Though the quantity was not large, the pilot Abdil was tasked to bring the ore back to Nibiru. He first repossessed the fastest of all their ships that was stolen by Alalu when he made his escape to Earth. In this ship, he could make a swift return to home. Aboard the ship were found many forbidden weapons that were thankfully not used by Alalu as he made his escape. Had they been, it may have changed the course of history, and we, as mankind, may never have come to be. The weapons were confiscated and buried deep underground in a hidden place on planet Earth. Once the quantities made it back to Nibiru, tests were taken, though the quantity was indeed minuscule. The atmospheric test was a magnificent and glorious success, and the mission was allowed to progress, as the climatic and the baroscopic solution was now at hand. Each of the first days on Earth corresponded with the biblical account of the first days of God's creation, with certain tasks taking place on certain days, with one extremely major difference. One day to the Nephilim from Nibiru was equivalent of 3,600 days on Earth. The first 6 days, or 6 shars, took 21,600 days, or 60 Earth years. Then they rested for a shar. The year was 440,000 BC, and the mining operations on Earth were about to begin. The Sumerian word Eden translates as the home of the righteous one, and it was there where the city of Eridu was established. Mesopotamia was the name of the land between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, and was the place where Eden was established. The two landmarks were the mountain peaks called Arata and Ararat, and would be used to direct ships coming from Nibiru. These mountain peaks would ultimately be leveled by the Great Flood and replaced by pyramids for directional purposes long before there was an Egypt. There was a drawing for the leadership position on Earth Station number 1. Alalu, who had made the discovery of gold, was left out of the drawing for the commanding role on Earth. Once again, he challenged Anu to a fight. This time, it was to decide which one of the two would command the station. Yet again, Alalu was defeated. However, this defeat would not come without consequences. As Anu raised his hands in victory, Alalu sat up and bit off the manhood of Anu. After surviving the mauling, Anu returned to Nibiru for much-needed healing. Because of this, Alalu was forever exiled from the planet after being tried by a council of the 7 judges. He was exiled to live on the planet Mars for the remainder of his life. His grandson decided to stay there alone with him, unable to let his grandfather live in absolute solitude. After a few years, Ninhursag traveled from Nibiru to Earth to hold the position of Chief Medical Officer, responding to the many complaints being voiced by the Anunnaki there. On her way, she stopped off at Mars and found Alalu dead. Alalu's grandson, resembling Alalu's face in his honor, had carved a great rock. After all, he was the one that first made possible the attempt to save Nibiru from poisoning. Remember, it was his discovery of gold on Earth Station number 1 that repaired and sustained the planet. Face on Mars can be seen from Earth, even to this day, as proof of the affair, as Alalu's grandson was given the command of the Mars way station. In 400,000 BC, more Anunnaki arrived to further increase the numbers to assist in the mining operation. Enlil and Father Anu traveled from Nibiru in an effort to determine if the operation was still worth all the trouble it entailed. Only a portion of the breaches had by this time been repaired. The operation was in need of being moved to the rich soil and rock of Lower Africa along the Zimbazi River. A sky chamber was then used to explore mountains in nearby regions as they pondered the difficulties in mining for gold in rock. Anu arrived on Earth to eyewitness the operation in the lower regions of Africa, and to also decide who would remain on Earth and who would return to Nibiru, Anu or son Enlil. They drew lots, and Enlil became the lord of the command of Eridu. Brother Anki, the Earth Master, while Anu would remain on Nibiru. The kingship of Earth Station was of great importance, for that person would one day become the paramount god Jehovah, supreme deity of the entire system. By the year 360,000 BC, a new spaceport was established at Sipil, a moon circling Jupiter, while Sharupok was the new establishment of the medical center by the use by Nin Hersag. An industrial center called Bad Tibera was then established for the purpose of smelting and refining the gold in Africa, as Larza and Largash established as beacon cities for incoming spacecraft. Anki, while overseeing the operation, built his new home palace in a place that is now known as Greater Zimbabwe.
Welcome back. I really like the music in that one. It was this. So anyway, now that we're here, like I said, this is the part where the book is going to get very, very serious, and it's going to be very challenging for certain people to hear, because now we're getting to the point where we're about to get into the creation of mankind, the creation of Eve, and the true Garden of Eden story. Because the Garden of Eden story that we're accustomed to is flawed. Absolutely incredibly flawed. I was talking to a brother the other day, and I was trying to get him to answer the question, why were black people slaves? Now, to write a book like this, the research had to be immense. The conclusion I came up with why black people were slaves was simply because when they came to the Americas, they tried to war against the indigenous people and had a terrible time, because these indigenous people, these so-called American Indians, were tough, and they would rather die than become subservient to anyone. And it was a genocide. But so they tried it again in South America. Well, South America was even a bigger problem, because you didn't have wide open plains. You had jungle where those particular Indians knew better than the people who were coming to conquer them would ever have known. Like what happened in Vietnam, the Viet Cong was able to defeat United States because they were able to use the jungle on us. It's difficult to try to war against somebody in their own backyard. Well, when they tried to dominate the Indians in South America, they ran into a it was not, they didn't get very far at all. I mean, you're getting blow darts coming from this way, you're getting snakes and anacondas coming from this way. They tried to cross a river and the piranhas would eat them. It was just too ridiculous. So they said, this is too much trouble. But what we can do, it was a pope, I'll talk about him later, one of the popes at the time said, well, you know, there is something we can do that is a lot easier than all of this. There is a race of people in Africa that aren't quite human beings, and we can just make slaves out of them. That was the first notion. That's why black people were enslaved, because the Catholic Church had decided that black people weren't 100% humans, and we could make caged animals from them. Well, I asked a biblical scholar the same question: why were black people slaves? His answer, it surprised me actually, because I didn't think anybody could be this that weird, but he said because we are the original people and Adam and Eve sinned, so we had to suffer for the sins of Adam and Eve. And he said it with a straight face. He wasn't kidding. So I'm talking about the brainwashing that has gone on within us. No wonder we have low self-esteem. No wonder everywhere. I think black women are beautiful. So I like to say to black women, you are so beautiful, but you don't have to tell everybody you're beautiful everywhere you go, because other people have the right to be beautiful too. There's beauty in every culture. I've heard a discussion, and it was all about black women are the most beautiful women in the world. Yeah, they are to some people, but everybody else in the world has a right to be beautiful too. And I believe it's because of our insecurity that we have to keep stating that. We don't have to keep stating it. We know it. We know how beautiful you are. But if you have to keep saying it, it's because I don't believe you believe it yourself. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. This show will get deep like that. Be proud of yourself, whoever you are. So I'm a spiritualist, so I have to represent everyone. So thank you for coming. I love everybody. And please like and subscribe. We have a few more views, but we got to get our numbers up so we could do big things. Thank you for coming.